She already has a sense that something is changing. Not about you personally, but about a category of men that includes you. Men who are beginning to question the surface-level narratives they were given about attraction. For most of her life, she has operated in a world where those questions were rarely asked deeply enough to matter. The standard story you were told is simple. Attraction is a formula. Look good, build status, make money. Get those 3 pillars in place and women will naturally gravitate toward you. Clean, logical, something you can optimize like a system. And while that framework is not entirely wrong, it is incomplete. It is the visible layer of something far more complex happening underneath. What follows goes beneath that surface. These are not conscious decisions she makes or rules she can clearly explain. These are underlying biological and psychological processes that shape how she responds to you long before logic or intention gets involved. You cannot negotiate with them, and she cannot simply override them. In every interaction you have had with a woman, these forces were either quietly amplifying your presence or subtly diminishing it without either of you realizing why. One of these mechanisms begins operating before she even forms an opinion about you, before you speak, before you express personality, before anything obvious happens. A kind of silent assessment is already underway. But before we get there, we need to start with the mechanism that causes most men to fail before they even understand the game they are in. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer once observed that the 2 enemies of human happiness are pain and boredom. And attraction, in many ways, is a negotiation between these same forces. Too much predictability creates boredom. Too much uncertainty creates anxiety. The men who succeed are the ones who can navigate between these 2 poles without falling into either extreme. They offer enough stability to feel safe, but enough novelty to feel alive. This is not a strategy. It is a way of being in the world that naturally produces both qualities. The shifting nature of desire is one of the most misunderstood aspects of attraction. Most men assume attraction is stable. They believe a woman either finds you attractive or she does not, and that this evaluation remains relatively fixed. So, they present themselves consistently, same energy, same personality, same approach, expecting consistent results. Then, confusion sets in when the same behavior produces different reactions at different times. The reality is more fluid. A woman's internal chemistry shifts across her cycle, and these changes influence what she responds to. It is not about mood in a superficial sense. It is about deeper biological preferences that evolve over time. During certain phases, traits associated with boldness, edge, and unpredictability become more appealing. During others, qualities like emotional steadiness, warmth, and reliability take priority. Think of it like tuning a radio. If you are broadcasting on one frequency all the time, you will only connect when her internal receiver happens to match that frequency. The rest of the time, you are simply not aligned, regardless of your actual value. For example, imagine 2 men. One is consistently calm, emotionally present, and stable. The other is more unpredictable, adventurous, and intense. Neither is universally better, but depending on where she is internally, one may resonate far more strongly than the other at a given moment. The mistake most men make is assuming consistency equals authenticity. They stick rigidly to one mode of being, believing that is the honest approach. But authenticity does not mean limitation. A man who has range, who can embody both grounded stability and sharp intensity when appropriate, does not feel inconsistent. He feels complete. This does not mean acting or pretending. It means developing the capacity to access different parts of yourself naturally. Someone who can challenge her one moment and deeply understand her the next creates an experience that feels dynamic rather than predictable. A simple example. If every conversation you have is agreeable and easy, she may feel comfortable, but not deeply engaged. If every interaction is challenging or intense, she may feel stimulated, but not safe. The man who can move between those states without forcing it creates something more compelling than either extreme alone. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote that we should not confuse the calm of a man who has conquered his passions with the calm of a man who has never known them. The man who has developed range, who has explored different aspects of his own nature, brings a depth to his presence that a one-dimensional man can never replicate. Now we move to something deeper, the imprint of early emotional experiences. The brain does not store all experiences equally. Some moments leave a far stronger imprint than others. These are the moments where emotional intensity, novelty, and connection all happen at once. When those elements combine, the experience becomes more than a memory. It becomes a reference point. During late adolescence and early adulthood, the brain is especially sensitive to these experiences. It is still forming patterns, still shaping how it interprets connection and attraction. The first time someone feels deeply desired, emotionally seen, and intensely engaged at the same time, it can create a kind of internal blueprint. From that point forward, new experiences are often unconsciously compared against that blueprint. This does not mean she is consciously thinking about a specific person from her past. It means her brain has learned what a peak experience feels like, and it uses that feeling as a baseline. When something new approaches that level, it stands out. When it does not, it fades into the background. You might notice this in subtle ways. For instance, she reacts strongly to something small you do, and neither of you fully understands why. Or she seems slightly detached even when things are objectively going well. These reactions are not always about the present moment. They are influenced by patterns formed earlier. Trying to compete with that directly is ineffective. You cannot outdo a memory by copying it. The only way forward is to create something different, something that does not try to replace the past, but expands beyond it. For example, if her strongest past experiences were built around intensity and unpredictability, bringing only more intensity will not necessarily stand out. But combining depth, stability, and moments of genuine surprise in a way she has not experienced before can create a new kind of imprint. It is not about being better than someone from her past. It is about offering something her past did not include. The psychologist Carl Jung, who studied the architecture of the human psyche extensively, wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. When you enter her world with something genuinely new, something she has not encountered before, a reaction occurs. Both are transformed. You are not just fitting into her existing pattern, you are creating a new one. Another common misunderstanding is the idea that constant admiration is attractive. Many men believe that the more they praise, agree, and validate, the more appealing they become. In reality, excessive approval often has the opposite effect. When admiration is given freely and without discernment, it loses meaning. If everything she does is met with approval, it signals that there is no real standard behind that approval. It becomes predictable and over time less valuable. What tends to matter more is accurate recognition. Not flattery, but observation. Not generalized compliments, but specific acknowledgement. For example, instead of saying, "You are amazing," which is broad and easy to say, noticing something precise, like how she handled a difficult situation or the way she thinks through a problem, carries more weight. It shows attention. It shows that your perception is not automatic. This kind of evaluation is not about criticism or withholding kindness. It is about having your own perspective and applying it thoughtfully. When someone feels truly seen, not just praised, they tend to engage more deeply. Imagine two scenarios. In the first, a man agrees with everything she says, compliments her constantly, and never challenges her. In the second, a man listens carefully, occasionally disagrees, and points out things about her that others might overlook. The second scenario often creates more engagement because it feels real. People value what has to be earned. Not in a transactional sense, but in the sense that it reflects genuine interaction rather than automatic approval. The philosopher Simone de Beauvoir observed that one is not born a woman, but becomes one. And the process of becoming is shaped by the people who see us clearly, who challenge us, who refuse to treat us as mere objects of admiration. When you see a woman clearly, when you acknowledge her complexity, you are participating in her becoming. And that participation creates a bond that superficial admiration can never achieve. The need to be truly seen, not simply admired, is one of the most powerful forces in human connection. It is why people remember the ones who understood them, not the ones who flattered them. The final mechanism relates to how desire sustains itself over time. Attraction is not just about what someone has. It is about the experience of moving towards something, If everything feels completely secured, the sense of anticipation fades. On the other hand, if something feels entirely unattainable, motivation drops as well. The most engaging space tends to be somewhere in between, where there is progress, but not complete certainty. This does not mean playing games or creating artificial distance. It means living in a way that naturally maintains forward movement. A person who is growing, exploring, and evolving does not become static. Their life has direction, and that direction creates a sense of ongoing discovery. For example, if your life is stagnant, same routines, same mindset, no real progression, then over time, there is less to engage with. But if you are developing new skills, pursuing meaningful goals, and expanding your perspective, there is always something unfolding. That sense of movement creates interest because it is not fully predictable. Not in a chaotic way, but in a way that reflects genuine development. It is similar to following a story that is still being written. If you already know exactly how it ends, your engagement decreases. But if there is uncertainty and growth, you stay invested. The philosopher Heraclitus, known for his doctrine of flux, observed that you cannot step into the same river twice. Everything is changing, and the man who is changing, growing, and evolving is like a river that never stays the same. A woman cannot fully predict what you will become because you yourself are not fully defined. That uncertainty, that sense of ongoing discovery, is what sustains attraction over time. It is not about keeping her guessing in a manipulative sense. It is about being the kind of person whose life has enough depth and direction that there is always more to discover. The dynamic of ongoing pursuit is not about chasing. It is about being the kind of man who is always moving forward, always becoming more, always offering new dimensions to discover. When you embody that, you become someone worth pursuing. All of these mechanisms point toward a common theme. They respond to what is real, not rehearsed behavior, not calculated strategies, but actual qualities. Having range means genuinely developing different aspects of yourself, not switching masks. Creating meaningful experiences means engaging in life in a way that produces depth, not staging moments for effect. Having standards means knowing what you value and why, not imitating confidence. Staying in motion means actively growing, not pretending to be busy. At the core of all this is something simpler than it appears. Who you are when there is no performance involved, when there is no audience, no strategy, no need to impress. That version of you is what people ultimately respond to, even if they cannot explain it. It shows up in how you carry yourself, how you make decisions, how you engage with the world. You cannot convincingly simulate depth. You can only build it over time. And that leads to a more personal question. Are you becoming someone whose presence creates new experiences for others? Something distinct and meaningful? Or are you repeating patterns that feel familiar both to you and to the people you meet? Most people recognize the gap between where they are and where they could be, but they do not act on it consistently. They return to familiar patterns because they are comfortable, even if they are limiting. The difference is not in knowing these ideas. It is in applying them in a way that gradually reshapes how you live. Because in the end, none of this is really about women. It is about the kind of person you are becoming and whether that version of you is built on something solid enough to be felt, not just seen. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius, reflecting on the nature of human existence, wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When your thoughts are colored by the desire to grow, to expand, to become more than you are, your soul reflects that. And others, especially women, feel that reflection. They sense that you are not static. They sense that there is more to discover. And that sense of ongoing discovery is what makes you unforgettable. The relationship between attraction and self-development is often misunderstood. Many men approach self-improvement as a means to an end. They work on themselves so that women will find them attractive. This is backwards. The true path is to work on yourself for its own sake, to become a person of depth, range, and presence, because that is the kind of person you want to be. When you do that, attraction follows naturally. Not because you are trying to attract, but because you have become attractive through the process of becoming yourself. The philosopher Aristotle wrote that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. If you repeatedly choose growth, choose depth, choose presence, you become excellent at being yourself. And excellence is attractive, not because it is designed to be, but because it is rare. The rarity of genuine depth is what makes it compelling. In a world full of people who are performing, who are wearing masks, who are trying to be what they think others want, the man who is simply becoming more himself stands out. He cannot be replicated. He cannot be faked. He is simply present, growing, and real. And that presence, that reality, is what women ultimately respond to. If this video helped you in one way or another, please consider supporting the channel using the Super Thanks feature. Your support means a lot, and it helps us keep creating better content specially for you. Every contribution goes directly into improving the quality of these videos and bringing you more of the Stoic wisdom and psychological insights that you have come to expect. Thank you for being part of this journey. Stay grounded, stay present, and I will see you right here in the next one.